Good afternoon, Naveen.
Hello.
Thank you for inviting me here to WERQWISE at downtown San Francisco.
My pleasure.
And wonderful to be here in the business that you came over here to set up.
Yeah.
But love to learn a little bit more about your background and your journey into San Francisco before you got here.
Yeah, I mean it's a long one and it's a global one. So I started off in banking, as many people of my generation did. That's what I wanted to do. I was fortunate enough to do that in London and New York. And then I was really looking to look to products quite young, quite early. I had the opportunity to work with really high caliber people early on in my career. I did that in London, and then I always had a bit of an emerging markets focus and really fascinated by the rise of China and Asia. And what kind of was happening over there in terms of opening up economies and things like that. So I was really fortunate to be sent to Hong Kong to open up a new office, which was building out an investment business, but also helping our portfolio companies do market entry into Asia or find sources or do acquisitions. So it was really, really insightful.
Wow.
And then after that, I decided that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And what better place to do it than beautiful San Francisco?
Yeah, the heartbeat of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
and what through that journey, when you think of high performance, what springs to mind as being a great example?
To be honest, there's one example that stands out above all of us, and that would be Formula One. So I was really fortunate that the PE fund I worked for invested in a startup Formula One team. It was Virgin Racing when we started, and then it became Marussia. So I just got front row seats, as an observer rather than participant, but front row seats at multiple Grand Prix where I just had full access, during the races, but also socially with the team, can pick people's brains, just observe and watch them work. And it really is the pinnacle of kind of people and technology driving performance.
Fantastic. What was it about those people and some of the conversations you had? What did you learn about?
Well, firstly, it's the singularity of purpose they have, right? Everyone is singing from the same hymn sheet, despite their differing contributions, the different part of the businesses. You got the mechanics, the pit crew, the drivers, the people doing the data, the strategy team, but even the commercial teams and everything. It's just a single focus in terms of what they want to achieve. And the teamwork that they're able to deliver. And remember, a lot of that teamwork is under intense pressure, where they're forced to make in-game decisions about strategy, and they're collecting enormous quantities of data during a race about their car and the other cars. And then they have to make in-game calls on multiple factors, not just the pace of their cars, but, things like tire degradation or weather, things like that, all come into play for them to take decisions with, imperfect real-time information in real time.
Yeah. And how did they gel? I mean, obviously you've got a bunch of individuals there working under that pressure.
Yeah.
But what was it that brought them together to be successful?
I think the team, I can't overstate the teamwork part of it. And the way I always think about it is this. In organizations or in businesses in organizations, you often have, very collaborative, flat structures. You see that a lot in startups around, Silicon Valley. Or you have, hierarchical structures, like you see, the military or, in a fine dining kitchen.
Nice.
And they're able to do both. They're able to do both in terms of, work as a team, be collaborative, everyone has an opinion. But then when it's game time, it becomes much more militaristic in terms of, you've got people who are making calls and the others just execute that question.
Fantastic.
Right? And the fact that they can just merge those two approaches is, I think, quite unique, relative to organizations that I've been privy to.
So when you see that coming together in business, especially in the startup world of San Francisco, what do you tend to see happen in those organizations? What's the difference, and how could we bridge that gap?
I mean, Formula One, you've got people who are highly skilled in their specific field of expertise, working together to deliver something they're incredibly passionate about. So trying to replicate that in a startup is not easy. I've tried, but if I can have an organization where people feel like they speak up, you've got their backs, there's no prizes for not admitting mistakes and moving on. But at the same time, we execute with pace and urgency, then I feel like I've got part of the way.
Yeah. And what are the characteristics of those people on the team that you saw in Formula One that really just sort of outshine?
Yeah. I would say there's preparation. So they're all prepared and they're all, you know, masters of their crafts. They really are. They've all got this mental resilience in that world. They're really built differently. Because you think about the ebbs and flows and the, you know, the discipline. You know, you can win and lose in 20 minutes. You know, it's just incredible. But then the bit that I really think that stands out and is something that I try and replicate, albeit, you know, we're all time constrained in the startup world, is how well they analyse what they've done. So learning from their mistakes, but also the way they analyse what they're good at. Why are we winning? You know, they place equal weight. So I think it's easy for us to go, well, that didn't go well. Why didn't it go well? And we all do that to various degrees. But how often do we say, well, why did that? Why did we win here? You know, why are we really good at this? And really analyse that with the same weight. And that's what they do. And they do that in a short time period between races and then execute on that information to deliver upgrades to the car.
Right.
So again, it's all done in this condensed period. So you've got high level performance, but the speed of execution is just remarkable.
So what would your advice be to anybody in business, startup, enterprise, facing a challenge, and what could they sort of steal from Formula One?
I think it's the power of the team and really having a clear understanding as a leader as who's good at what and making sure everyone else knows that. Because if it's just in your head, it's not that useful. You know, you want people to be taking the shortest line to get the information they need or get what they want. And that's what they did in Formula One. It doesn't go through some top structure. Everyone takes the shortest path through the organisation to deliver a solution. So I think that's a huge part of it. Obviously, the mental resilience, just never too high, never too low. Because then startups are, you know, a real journey of ups and downs and peaks and troughs and whatever. So never getting too high, never getting too low. It's also something I think, you know, people should think about. And then reiterate the point on continuous improvement, but doing it in a way where you place equal weight on what you're good at as you do things that you think they're right.
And how are you bringing that? So I understand you've got a new bit of technology at Piro. It's sort of.
Well, I mean, so WERQWISE, flexible workspace business that we started in 2018, we opened this location, and we just saw a huge market for real estate as a service. You know, no one really wants to sign a long-term lease. The market forces us to do that. People want this as a service. They want the amenities that go with it. But a big problem for this industry has always been, and the real estate industry as a whole, is things don't adapt very quickly. You know, you're often faced with compromises when you build your space out. And in today's world, it's even more apparent because we don't know who's coming in, when are they coming in, how they're going to come in, is it going to change? Is everyone hybrid going to come back into the office and more people going to go remote? There's so many ebbs and flows in terms of how people are using, commercial real estate and office space. So we create Piro, which is a hardware and software platform that allows us to move walls, data, power, and lighting with no construction, no demolition. And it allows you to iterate space. And you begin with a digital twin where you can design and redesign the space and seek input from other stakeholders who are going to use the space. We then deliver it with the hardware. And then we collect a lot of data. So we collect a lot of environmental data, a lot of usage data, which allows you to see how people are using the space, you know, what's working, what isn't, and then you can iterate. And you can continually iterate because there's no construction, no demolition, no cost.
So you're bringing the Formula One approach to your own business.
I'd like to think so. I wouldn't go that far. I'd like to think so. Yeah.
Good man.
I certainly learn off watching people before.
Good man. Thank you so much for your time. It was my pleasure. Appreciate it, and look forward to seeing your continued success.
Thanks for coming to WERQWISE.
Pleasure. Thank you. Bye. So we've just heard from Naveen there about what he'd learned from Formula One and how he can bring that into his own business, about communication, having the flat structure, the shortest line to go and have the conversation with somebody to get the right results, that buying in of team and making sure the team is all aligned behind that same purpose. So think about that in your own situation. And remember, be better, do better, and demand better. Let's go. Oh, it's so cheesy.
No, I like that. It's not cheesy.
Like, I think people, it's like pisses me off. It's like people can be better.